Hey everyone, this is Marc Bates, and this is Rabbit Room Apologetics podcast. So let's go ahead and continue where we left off. So we just finished with here working in Exodus 19 and 20 and 21, right? And we're talking here about the sea creatures and the creation of the sea creatures. And our topic was on how good probably means a lot more than just what we would call good, right? And there's a depths of meaning in here. And you'll find those types of depths of meaning within the Hebrew text and in the Greek as well. So, what I want to do is now continue here on verse 24. And this is a relatively short little section. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth living creatures according to their kinds, livestock and creeping things and beasts of the earth according to their kinds." And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth according to their kinds, and the livestock according to their kinds, and everything that creeps on the ground according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. All right. So the first thing is, in this little section here, it's absolutely perfect in demonstrating something you can hear very easily in the English and you can see in the Hebrew if you speak Hebrew. This is the parallelism where things get repeated, right? So, let the earth bring forth creatures according to their kinds, livestock and creeping things and beasts of the earth according to their kinds. And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth according to their kinds, and the livestock according to their kinds, and everything that creeps on the ground according to its kind. Now, why this repetition? Well, because it reinforces it, and this is part of that Hebrew parallelism. It's part of a chiastic structure. This is one of the ways you know this is in Hebrew poetry, is because of this constant repetition. Okay? And what they're doing is and in English it turns out they're almost identical. In Hebrew they're just a little bit different, but the idea is that they're taking the same thought, presenting it to you two slightly different ways, just to make sure that you understand what the process is here. And here, and once again, we're not. This is not a scientific text. This is a theological text. And so we're not talking about specific creatures here, where they're listing out of genealogies or taxonomies of all the different creatures. This is just that, hey, God created. He just started with the section before, right? In our last get together, we talked about sea creatures and birds, and now we're talking about land creatures. And it could be all kinds of things, okay? Livestock, creeps on the ground, right? Everything. So, this is what God created. Now, what I want to do, because there's not a whole lot to talk about here. I mean, there's some things I can, but I want to just keep pushing this forward a little bit. I want to show you one of the things why I like the Logos Bible software, and that's really good. And this is part of the new features that's in here. And this is where we talk about the ability of of the system to use some internal AI. Now, this is bounded AI in the sense that all of the text is only going to be texts that are within the Logos system that it's pulling from. So you're not going to get things from other things. But we were looking at the study assistant a couple times. Let's look at the next thing, which is the Factbook, right? And the Factbook makes use of some AI capabilities in here. So I had Genesis 1 24 to 25 up here, and it gives us the biblical reference. And if we want to, we can read more. We can get that there. We can look at biblical. We can look at the library, see what's in the library. Um, and this is the book of Genesis. So this is one of the um, uh, commentaries I have. There's a theological section here. On the sixth day, all land creatures are made, including human beings, as a way of acknowledging what people have in common with other animals. Okay. Yes and no, right? So you can see that there's quite a bit here you can get into. So you can get very deep in here, right? If I read more, it takes me here right back to my text. And so that's good. But the other thing it does is it brings up some commentary notes, right? And I can look by book, author, type, series, denomination that I'm looking for. I read commentaries. I don't rely on the commentaries very much because all the commentaries are written from a very specific viewpoint, and I already have my viewpoint, and I've been doing this for 20 plus years, so I'm pretty much beyond a lot of the commentaries. Though I always like looking at them because there's always little pieces of information you can get right from the commentaries, and then the texts. I do like this part here where you can quickly look at different versions of the Bible. So here is there's not. This is the Jewish Publication Society, and if you want to see what they did with this and what they may have done a little bit differently, and really it isn't that different. So let's just go ahead and close this tab. But you have all these versions. So if you have a bunch of texts, and I have quite a few, and you can see I can even ask for more, pulls all these down that I can look at. So if somebody says, "Oh, but I prefer the New Revised Standard Version," and so yeah, you can look at that, and there's where it has that comes up on screen, and we're not going to worry too much about the texts here, but there's quite a few here. I can look at Hebrew specific texts, right? The BHS, which is the classic one. This one is interesting because it's transcribed so that you can speak through the text if you don't speak in Hebrew and you can't read the Hebrew characters. Well, this helps you there. But then you also have the Hebrew Bible itself. Uh, we have the Hebrew English Interlinear Bible, which is made up in my English Standard Version display. I have the interlinear built into that, right? You can have the actual BHS itself. So if you need those, there are Greek variations on the Bible. You want to see what the Septuagint looks like and how they're spread out. So all these things are in here. Now, here's the question that's interesting. Questions to ask. And for the average person, these may be more questions than you thought of about just these two verses, right? What does animals creation teach us about God's power? And so if you want some more information here, we'll just click on that. It takes it a second or two, and it pulls up information from within the Logos library. So these are theological and commentaries and stuff that it's pulling this from. And here we go. And these are, you can see, so this comes from the Reformed Theology and Evolutionary Theory book, right? So you can see where this comes from, and you get verse items in here that you can look up and you can see. So the breath of God's creative dominion becomes evident through his relationship to animals. God declares that by his great power and outstretched arm, he made the earth along with the men and animals that are on earth. And that's from Jeremiah, right? And you can see what that is right there. So this is very interesting. Now, here's an interesting way to potentially use this. So you have this question, and maybe this is not exactly what you're looking for, but if this gives you an idea, right, uh, about God's breath. If you ask a follow-up question, that pulls that into the study assistant, which you've seen before. And then here's the answer, and we can ask here, right, where I may say, please describe the power and glory defined in this section. And it's going to know that I'm talking about God, right? And it looks that up, and you can actually have a conversation with this, right? And once again, what I really love about this, if you're working on Bible studies, or maybe you're going to seminary, and you need something where you can actually see the texts that make up what it is you're looking at. It has it here. It's talking about God's power and glory. In this section are defined through the manifold works he has made in wisdom, right? Okay, now let's see here. What do pagan authors claim about creation in a similar vein? So maybe I want to kind of extend this into a slightly different area. And I like this AI here because it gives you some really interesting topics to work from. And you can actually have this conversation, right? So here we talk about the fundamental the accounts fundamentally differ from biblical narrative and how they conceptualize divine power, right? Okay, let's ask specifically, how did the Anunnaki define creative power in their divine beings? So I'm just having a conversation here with it. And so if you're working on a Bible study, this might really help you, right? And you can see that it's going through analyzing results here. And here we're talking about the Anunnaki. And yeah, it spells it properly, and I don't. Okay, but once again, you get the idea is that you have this ability to really work with the text, and it can pull stuff out that you may not have known, right? So I love this, especially when you're getting into theological questions that are a little different than what we get in the creation story. So you have the Factbook and the Study Assistant now are two AI tools built into Logos, really are great. And once again, you have the ability here, depending on how you do this. So, for example, the religion of Babylon and Assyria, right? So, this specific book here gives me the exact pages it's referencing and where they are. And I happen to have this book in my library. I'm looking here. I don't think I have this one here. And so this one here will tell me the book and the exact pages potentially that it's looking for. But it allows me to buy it if it's a book that I want to add to my library easily. Okay. And so you can pick and choose which books you may want to add. The Theological Lexicon of the Old Testament. I have this particular one, right? And so here we this one goes to note 3, talking up here, talking about who administer destinies, right? Uh, so the great Anunnaki. So really a great tool if you're doing your own Bible studies. So just as they continue putting these things in here, this really is great. So just more things to look at. We're going to stop there because the next section here is going to be the big one. That's let us make man in our image. That'll be our next section going in. And then, just to give you some idea what's happening, when we finish with the initial Genesis story, right? And the first part of Genesis actually ends here, if I scroll down. And that actually, let me move to the Net Bible just because it doesn't have the Hebrew in there, right? And so we were up here at 124, right? With the living creatures. Then here's make man in our image, right? And this is all. And God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful, multiply, and so on. And then you'll notice that the story actually continues in 2:1, right? The heavens and the earth were completed. This is the end of that chiasm. And this is where early on, the guys who were coming up with the verse numbering and chapter numbering, they got this one wrong, right? The chapter really ends here. So we're going to cover from 27 to 2:1 next time. And then we're going to take a break from Genesis. And we're going to talk about some theological issues here, how to define theology because I want you to both have some commentary from the Bible and how you apply this, but I want you to teach you theology. The whole purpose for me of this podcast is to help teach basic theology and even more advanced theology to you so that you have that that groundwork and framing to do your own analysis, do your own studies, and to talk very intelligently about the text. And so we have to cover some theological questions and how they get defined. And then we'll apply that right back into the text. Okay, so we're going to finish this off. That'll be next uh, session. And then we're going to do a whole section on theological concept. And the one I'm looking at is doing genres, Old Testament genres, because we're talking a whole bunch about like poetry and genres and how that plays into how you interpret the text. So we're going to cover genres for a little bit. Then we'll get right back into the text. All right. If you have any questions, let me know. Put it in the comments. If you have some ideas and things you want me to cover, please put them in the comments. I will try to fit them into my schedule as quickly as I can. I'm pretty open here on how quickly I can move stuff around, so please ask them. If you haven't done so, do like and subscribe to the channel. It does help us out a bit here as we're trying to expand this out. Share this with a friend. And as always, if you like what you're seeing here with the Logos, right, and you want to use this, I'll give you a link where you get a discount on it and the free trial. And I mean, if you're going to use it, you might as well pick it up and get a discount on it. So I always look at things. So hope everyone's good. Have a great day. Be blessed. And as always, remember, God is good all the time. He is good. Thank you very much.